Okay. My name is Stephanie Bassler, and with me is Peter Reynolds. We're design partners at North River Architecture and Planning, and we'll be talking about the house that our practice designed for Peter. It's located in Accord, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley of New York State. The house was completed. It's a new construction in late 2017. And we'll be talking about our experience designing a passive house and designing specifically in the Hudson Valley. Peter, as I've been reflecting before this interview, this conversation on our work together on the design of your house, I'm noting that our process has been intentional from the start, which I think is fundamental to the success of this particular exploration. We were committed to designing passive house and net zero homes. We had some experience with it with our project at the Omega Institute, but we were looking for a design type that could have the potential to be accessible for cost, design, and for design process to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, that this is a very deliberate, compared to what we had been doing for last few decades, really, at least in my, my experience here in the Valley for 30, 35 years doing this kind of work. This is certainly the most kind of considered, purposeful project to try and help us expand the passive house and net zero market in the Hudson Valley. I know it's been, since you trained in passive house work and since we had that Omega project, we haven't really felt like we had enough traction, as much traction as we wanted, with a very creative demographic, people coming out of New York or quite literate about the politics of energy and so forth, but we haven't yet helped provide a bridge for them or to have them understand, nor did we with the local building community, about how they understand really what's the state of play now with passive house and net zero and how mainstream it really should be, we feel. So this house was a way to show that and to introduce it to our building community around here that we're close with, and certainly our client group and the design community. So we tried to produce this as a sort of state of play and what's the sweet spot now in the Hudson Valley for cost, to create a really emotionally alive building that is radically simple and radically functional. I know there's a lot of people, especially design professionals here watching this, that are in the same hunt along with us. So this is just our expression of it. Like how elemental can we go, and how much function can we allow to come to the fore to find a beautiful and emotionally alive house? It's that kind of a dialogue we've had.
I think the tenets of passive house design, which have you concentrating the resources, the financial resources of a project into the shell and the envelope, allowing you to simplify and conserve those resources so that you can be expressive. I think that's actually the sweet spot that you may have mentioned we're looking for, which is that by behaving economically as designers, we allow ourselves the potential for some expression, which at this price point may not have been available to us otherwise. And that was one of the questions we were asking ourselves while we were sort of first developing the idea for this project.
Mm-hmm. Maybe another good point is trying to find a way for that very functional aesthetic to connect with that history, that part of history of the Hudson Valley. It's a farm community still where we work in. There's still a lot of good farmland and people here working that, and it feels like an artisanal and very labor-oriented community still. It's that hybrid's still here, even though it has a lot of ex-urban population. So working with the farm, the agricultural typology, and in the case of this particular house, this first house, having that sort of big barn type house, and having some feeling of extravagance and fun and scale and excitement, rather than just letting the demands of energy, energy usage and so forth dominate the design. Something where you connect this New York City thing with what's going on in this rural agricultural community. So that's where we let this design go, and we let it go as far as we possibly could within the the very practical kind of work a day sort of commitments we've made to design in our practice. We really pay a lot of attention to longevity and certainly energy usage and practicality in this region, and siting and so forth. So
Part of the economies of what we're attempting here is making something that can be built by the skilled craftsmen who live and work in this area, and nothing outside the box that would, it's innovative in certain ways, but it doesn't confront limitations of the building trades.
right.
And we wanted to sort of prove out that it can be done, that we can use this project as a somewhat of a training exercise, and hopefully make more skilled tradespeople aware of the potential of of passive house construction, and the ease of it too.
We've been running into a feeling that there was a fear around the sort of demands around energy tight envelope and high performance and so forth, and we knew it wasn't so from our own experience. So we did hold open houses and workshops for the building trades and for the design trade and the client groups we come through, and realtors and so forth, midway during our project to have them understand this is still, in our case, we made this a simple stick frame construction. That was our envelope. There's lots of different wall systems to try, but we decided to keep the most conventional possible and make that available to people. So I think that was very much appreciated. And we understand that the delta in cost is just not that great if you approach it with builders and a team that just is thinking the same way from the very beginning. That's a key component, and it's demystified for them, because it's really not passive house for us, and net zero has really been more fun to design and not necessarily much more difficult. It's just one more layer to pay attention to. But if it's incorporated in, to your point, Stephanie, it's a very intentional thing at the very, very beginning, it's a nice design limitation to work with. Doesn't seem to have, in this house, I hope shows, it doesn't have a big design impact in a sort of restrictive way.
Agreed. So we talked about the historic building type a little bit. I want to talk about that a little bit more. And we've both been in the Hudson Valley for a while. You've been here for 30 odd years, working in the design and building trades. And we're both devoted to the historic character of the region. We have a lot of projects that hew to that type pretty strictly. And there's a fun tension between historic preservation and modern building types and detailing. But we've made an intentional move with this project and in our practice really towards more modern building detailing and building forms. But the architectural type that we've come back to your point, is for its simplicity, for its economy, is the simple gabled barn. And that's because it made sense for agricultural needs, for the inherent flexibility, a range of scale that's possible, and the efficiencies of construction.
Yeah, it's allowed us to really develop this into something we call, as you can see, Flex House. That became sort of the little bit of the brand of this particular building, and it seems to have caught people's interest or imagination. I read a book by Stuart Brand 25, 30 years ago called How Buildings Learn. It's a terrific sort of ecological thinking approach to sustainable design, and how it is that we could design buildings that last longer by virtue of their being loved by people for a longer period of time. So it's a sort of, it was an influential idea to me, and that just stuck with me. And this building was a way to try and express that, to try and think of what ways can a house be over time flexible. And that this barn type and barn frame, so this is not a timber frame building, this is a simple expression of that. It spans, it's 24-foot span here, and allows the partitions to be easily movable in the future, or designs to be amended without much difficulty as you ramp up towards construction drawing phase. And the idea at least has caught imagination among our clients, and allows them to participate a little bit more than usual, with us staying quite relaxed about the SDDD phase of work. So flexibility as a way for this house to learn how to stay useful and relevant over the next few generations was sort of the fun idea that we played with in thinking about barn.
And we certainly intend to build houses that, are supposed to last a century. This isn't a throwaway construction, and that's inherent in the passive house standard, which emphasizes durability and resilience, both physical resilience under environmental stresses and also environmental resilience itself, in being adaptable to conditions that are, you know, actually difficult to sustain comfort. Excessive heat hits us every summer. It seems to get worse. You've had 2 or 3 summers now in the house, and I'm I'm sure you've said many times that the level of comfort there is almost startling.
Yeah, yeah, it's true for any of you who have lived in one or been in passive house for any period of time. And we knew going in, we'd done one and understood that in an office setting. Our first passive house project was an office building, so we'd had that feedback. But in Europe, you certainly hear all the time the sort of added benefit of this rigorous envelope is extreme comfort, because everything inside radiates that temperature. So it's really a kind of no maintenance system. I really can't tell what the weather is like outside, nor can you hear anything that's going on outside. So with just a minimum of heating and cooling regulation during the year, you feel a lot of very, very comfortable, no draft experience of the house. And I'm somebody who loves wood-fired heat. I always loved fireplaces and old leaky colonial houses, and then wood stoves and so forth. And I required our team to design this house so that I could put a wood stove in it. But the reality is that I've lost my, I do the sauna instead, but I don't really feel the need for it. You feel really comfortable to the bone all winter. And so that's that is a terrific thing, I think, for our clients have appreciated, as well.
Definitely. So just a quick dive into the technical aspects of passive house. Most of the viewers and listeners are probably aware, but it's a standard that originated in Germany that seeks to reduce energy consumption in buildings by as much as 80% compared with typical code-built construction. And it does that by way of requiring continuous insulation on the building exterior, basically focusing, as I said earlier, on the quality of the shell or the envelope. You have triple glazed windows and thermal bridge-free construction. You have energy recovery ventilation systems, so that's the indoor air quality that is facilitated by a constant replacement of your indoor airspace with fresh outside air while conserving the energy, the heat or the cooling that you have inside the house. You have minimal space conditioning by way of simple ductless mini split heat pumps. Those have been on the market for quite some time. They're well established and a great resource for energy efficient heating and cooling. And also, when tied to the solar array that's on the roof of your house, it makes for perfect symbiosis between the energy production that you have through solar panels and your electric-based heating and cooling and ventilation. So, it's really a self-contained system. It does create a way for the building to be resilient, as I said, in different extremes of temperature. So, we've been in your house in extremes of winter and can't feel a thing. And, right now with the heat of the summer, it's the same. So that's almost as important to our clients and to us personally, the personal comfort of living in a home as knowing that your electric bill is going to be 0 on an annual basis.
Yeah. Um, I'll just add one other thing about it. Just I hadn't really thought about this until we got going, actually energy modeling the project. But for what it's worth, it also produces enough energy to power my car. I have a Chevy Volt. I don't have a Tesla, but I have a Chevy Volt, which is an electric hybrid, and I can do all my local travel within that net zero paradigm, or pretty close. You know, depending on how you count it, but pretty close, just off the roof. So it's something that's obviously just a couple of years away for a large group of the demographic once they realize this and realize they don't really have to buy much gas. And so anyway, I just stuff that in there to give you a sense of the scale of what we're talking about. With a few more solar panels, people can essentially do their own transportation right off the roof of their house.
Yeah.
Another thing about this house design, which we'd like to keep it in future models of this, is we tried to take advantage of that comfort level that the envelope provides, and particularly the glazing, in this case, to give you an radical experience of being outdoors. So I used a lot of the glazing budget, such as if you want to call it that, in one room in the main sort of town square sort of room in this house. It's not true of every design we do in this series, in this type, but it is a wonderful thing to be able to feel like you're sort of at the mouth of a very large cave, and you're really camping almost. You're practically outdoors, and that's afforded by the quality of this triple glazing. We get them from Europe, but there are a lot of triple glazed manufacturers, mainstream ones, who are almost at the passive house level in North America. So that's a terrific advantage, that if you can offer people that chance to have the indoor-outdoor experience, almost a warm climate house, through the glazing strategy. I'm an outdoors kind of person, but here's an image of it, and I have that in winter just as much as summer, and with total comfort. Can't do that necessarily with conventionally, in our climate, with conventionally glazed units.
True. Not without spending a lot on heating and cooling to compensate.
Yeah, it's a given, to be at net zero, a sane net zero strategy.
Yeah. Just a few more points. We talked earlier about appreciating the regional craft. That's part of the culture of the Hudson Valley, and the tradespeople, the artisans who can do the careful work. It's carpentry, but it takes some care. And you come from a personal background of carpentry and earlier on sort of design build practice. And your love of the woodcraft brings, I think, a warmth and liveliness to the home without an extravagance of cost. The trim that we're looking at in this photograph is all LVLs from inside to out. So that's an economical material that we're using to maximum effect. We use it for budget reasons. We use it because it's interesting. It's visually lively. It's kind of unpredictable. It's a little bit rough. We're not too slick and tight with our design detailing, because we feel an interesting balance is kept between having some handwork and then having some crisp, interesting modern details. These are some W section columns here that are buttressing the glass wall in your house, as an example.
Yeah. So this house, as we said, is intended to reflect a studio kind of approach to living, high flexibility of rooms, redundancy of use, and so forth, with just workmanlike materials, and see how that goes. We also are interested in, we've done some. Now we're building ourselves a higher end version with a bit more finesse in the woodworking and built-in beds and things like that, which we also love. But we're looking for the floor underneath this from a cost point of view. That's and especially we feel like there's an audience now in coming up out of New York that for whom this is actually more comfortable. And wherever possible, we use leftover materials. We had quite a bit of material. All this oak you're seeing on the exterior is left over from a project we had, and so we used that as a jumping off point for all of the interior and exterior woodworking. Also on the left-hand corner there, you can see above my car some cork. That's an exterior, that's caramelized cork, which did have to come over from Portugal, be flown over from Portugal, but so it has that profile to it energy-wise, but otherwise it's just a terrific, exciting material for us as acoustic material, as backsplash in the kitchen. It's what you're seeing up here on the ceiling behind me here, and as an exterior material. It's just extremely versatile, very sustainably produced and so forth. So we're thinking about it just the way I'm sure you all are about how can you approach not just the embodied energy of the materials and the energy strategy overall, but also the kind of comfort of informal living that everybody seems to be evolving into. And I think also is very consistent with the Hudson Valley, by the way.